What's going on, Facts family? If you don't know me already, my name is Jarrell Joyner, and I am joined tonight by my good friend Merrick Green, and we're going to talk finances tonight. We're going to talk generational wealth. We're going to start that process anyway. What you think, Merrick?
Yeah, I think it's a great time to start it. We've been talking about having this three-part series, and this is part one. Like Jarrell said, my name is Merrick Green, and Jarrell and I have been friends for a long time, back when we were broke lieutenants in the Air Force.
Amen, brother. I remember those days. Made many mistakes, so I can. That's why we can kind of share because we've made some terrible money mistakes and made some and we've turned that thing around and we've started to make our way to being wealthy anyway. I don't know if we've quite gotten there yet, but we're well on our way. So
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is that on that journey is that we share it with other people, right? Because I'm sure there's some people out there that are listening that have made some bad financial decisions and just trying to figure out, well, how do I get back on track? What can I do? Who can I talk to? And I think tonight we should, in this three-part series, part one at least, get the conversation going, because that's what it is. It's a conversation about finances that I think we need to have.
absolutely. So we got plenty of stories that we're going to share with you about our own personal, trials and tribulations with finances, and but tonight we're gonna kind of this is just a teaser night. We're not going to get into it right because this takes time. But we're going to give you a little bit about how you can become financially wealthy and some of the pitfalls that will stop you from becoming financially or creating generational wealth is what we're calling this. You ready to start the slides, Mark?
Go ahead and let's start. I'm going to read something real quick before we get started.
All right.
So this seminar, this three-part presentation, are opinions and for information purposes only. This is not intended as investment advice. If you want investment advice, I highly suggest you seek a duly licensed professional, which I am not. Jarrell is not, for investment advice. We know some pretty good ones. So if you have questions about who to talk to, we all have some friends that are in the financial services business. I'm sure we'll link you up with them.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's go
Absolutely. And
ahead.
I hear on that, Merrick, because I agree, because ultimately the majority of our wealth we have with the financial manager, so I don't manage that myself.
Yeah.
So
I just handed all of ours over.
all right, sounds good. Janice, if you don't mind bringing up the slides for us, please. All right, so here we are. Like he said, my name is Jarrell and his name is Merrick, and we're about to go for this. So slide. All right, so here's just an overview of what we're going to talk about. So this is not all encompassing, but we're going to talk about the myths about millionaires, how easy it is to become a millionaire. I think that it's very hard to become a millionaire, but really it's not very hard at all. It just takes time, or whatever the case. You can't do it overnight. We're not, especially if you don't have the type of income that some of the other millionaires have, where you're making $1 million a year. So we're going to talk about three components of wealth creation, why most people are not rich. That's going to be big, and then we're gonna probably touch budgeting, but we're not gonna get into budgeting too much tonight because that's an entire lesson on itself. So we're not gonna talk too much about budgeting. We're gonna talk about how it works. All right, next slide. So, Merrick, if I had to ask you, Merrick, what do you think all these people have in common?
A lot of them are actors or athletes.
That's right. A lot of them are athletes and athletes. That is absolutely. But I don't think Bill Gates ever picked up football, and I don't know how
No,
well he acts, but
no, that's right. He's the one. He might be one. Oh no, Mark Zuckerberg is up there
you
too.
got
I'm sure
Mark,
he wasn't. Yeah,
you got the owner of Amazon up there too. He
that's
doesn't.
right.
I
He's
mean,
an astronaut.
he's an astronaut, absolutely. But the thing that I really wanted to pit people is understand is that all these people are at least millionaires. A lot of them are billionaires or whatever the case, but they're all millionaires. And so the question I had uh, is, what job do you, the audience, need to become a millionaire? What do you think it is, Merrick? What type of job do we got to have to become a millionaire, or basically, how much money we got to be making?
I don't know. You think would you have to make $1 million a year to be a millionaire in gross annual salary?
Well, I mean, I think you would. Well, put it this way. You could become a millionaire because it's not necessarily about, and we're going to talk about this. It's not also about, how much you make. It's about how much you consume, right? So in
Right.
theory, you could make $1 million a year and spend $1 million a year, and so you would never really, in theory, become a millionaire. So
Right. Yeah, you can make $100,000 every year for 10 years, and you would have made $1 million, but you still might not be a millionaire.
yeah, and you could have, and I help a lot of people with finances, and what I notice is that we are consumers. We
That's
consume a lot of our money, whatever the case may be. So
that's the way the system is rigged against us. And a quick story, so, we lived in Germany for 3 years, and
mhm.
you couldn't drive really really far to find a Burger King McDonald's combination. And I remember we came back to Virginia, Power Plant Boulevard there on Mercury Boulevard. There was a Zaxby's,
Mhm.
Chick-fil-A, Popeyes, Sonic, all within the same area. You could just walk to all these restaurants because America is built for consumers, right? They want you to spend your hard-earned money that you work for, not necessarily invest it, and let your money work for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to get into, like I said, we're going to talk about consuming and all that, whatever the case may be. So put your seatbelts on, or as T.O. would say, get your popcorn ready. So let's talk about some myths about investing. One of the myths, and just so you know, there's this book called, I can't remember, The Millionaire Next Door. That was the precursor to this book. And then the dude that used to work for Dave Ramsey, he doesn't work for him anymore, but Chris Hogan wrote the book called, I'm sorry, I'm having a brain fart right now, but these myths came out of the book that Chris Hogan wrote. So basically what they did is they interviewed 10,000 millionaires, and they basically took all that data and they put it in a book. So the first myth is that wealthy people inherit all their money. Now, okay, we know that, anybody knows that that's not true, but what percentage of people do you think, Merrick, actually inherit their money? Is it a large percentage or a small percentage? What do you
I think it's a small percentage.
All right, let's see what it says. 79% of millionaires receive zero inheritance. So basically only 20% of the people actually inherited money or inherit millions of dollars or whatever the case would be. Most people, the majority of these people come from middle class or below. So it's not about you actually going out there and getting money from somebody. It's out there you going out there making some smart choices, some smart decisions, and becoming millionaires yourself. Let's look at the next one. Wealthy people take big risks with their money.
I don't think they do.
I don't think they do either, Merrick. But what does the book say? The truth is 79% of the millionaires become millionaires in the IRAs and the 401ks. So it's just about that. And we're going to get into this, that month to month, just putting money away, paying what my grandfather used to tell me this a long time ago. You got to pay yourself first. So if you're paying yourself first and you're not consuming every dime, you can become a millionaire. All right. Next one is the wealthy have a leg up in their education and their careers.
So
what'd you say, Merrick? I'm sorry.
I said this one's a hard one because they say education and wealth and good jobs all kind of go hand in hand.
And I agree with that to some degree. They do. However, I guess the point that they're trying to make here is that let me just go ahead and click the slide here. Is the truth is 33% of millionaires never had a six-figure job, and 70% went to public schools or community college. So it didn't say that you didn't have to go to college or you didn't have to have a six-figure job. It's saying that the majority of people, not the majority, a small minority, which is 33%, never had a six-figure job, so they never made over $100,000 a year. And most of them went to public schools. What that means is you don't have to go to Harvard or Yale or wherever you need to go. You can go to a regular public school or even a community college, and you can still become wealthy. Because it's not about your education level. It's about sacrifice. And we're going to get into that. But it's really to talk about sacrifice. All right. So how can you become a millionaire? And I think I put you on the moneyguy.com. I don't know if you saw this or not yet, but I did some statistics, and basically for the last 30 years, the market has earned 9.87% on average. So that means some years it might have earned 30%, and some years it might have earned a negative 10%. But over the course of averaging out over time, it has made 9.8%. So basically, if you would have started 30 years ago and then come up to today, you would have made almost 10% in your money.
But here's a good point to interject. The way that we were taught to save and invest our money, and like you talked about with your grandfather saying, "Pay yourself first." I know, as you know, coming up and growing up the way I did, the methodology or the mentality was you go to work, you save your money, and your money will grow, and then at some point you'll be able to use it later on in life. And the key to that whole conversation was you save your money. You save it, meaning that you go to the bank, you put it in a savings account, and you get your 0.05% interest on your savings account. And I think that's where the narrative needs to change, because nobody was talking about investing their money. We were talking about saving their money. And as a kid, that's all I heard. And it wasn't until, I became an adult and started talking to friends like you and, everybody we, were working with that, we started talking about investing. What's this investing thing that they're talking about?
Absolutely. And, even back then, I think about some of the things that I did because I thought that I was trying to get ahead, and I got involved in some things that I'm not going to say they were illegal, but they weren't the smartest things to do, or whatever the case with my money. I think one of them was I bought an annuity when I first got to Pensacola, Florida. So I had just come in the Air Force, and I bought an annuity, and then I found out, some different things about annuities after, getting a little bit smarter. And I was like, that was a terrible investment. Not terrible, but not the best investment, put it that way. And so I ended up paying my little surrender charge and getting my money and putting it some better places. But I could have saved some money there. But let's just take a look at this example. So basically, we know the stock market earned 9.8, almost 10% over the last 30 years. So if you invest $1,980, which is $165 a month, or $38 per week, at the age of 17, so basically when you graduate from high school, you start putting $38 a week away, and you earn 8%, not the 9.87%, but the 8% annual. When you come 65, you'll have over $1 million. It's just that easy, right? It's just that easy. $38 a week. I wish I would have known at 15 that I could invest $38 a week and be a millionaire. You know what I'm saying? So
it takes a lot of discipline.
Maybe at 15, it didn't at 21, because actually I started investing when I was in college. I was putting $25 a month away. I wasn't putting $38 a week away, but I was putting $25 a month away in an IRA and in a mutual fund because I had a cousin that taught me about investing. So, but a little bit anyway. So she was. Yeah. So the next example, but if you made the 10%, you would only have to put $84 a month, or $19.38 away. So if you made basically what the stock market has made over the last 30 years, $19.30, basically a couple Happy Meals today, and you'd be a millionaire. And basically by starting at 17, and again, when you turn 65. So the question I have for most, because I taught this class to a bunch of high schoolers, and I asked them, so how much of that money is yours? I mean, how much money did you put in? And I think this is the most shocking part to everybody, because so if you use the 10% model, $95,000 of that would be your if you did the 8% model, you'd earn $95,000 of that would be yours. So basically $905,000 or whatever the case would be the interest that it gained over the course of time.
It's a lot of interest.
Yes, but if you use the other one, you would only have to put $48,000. So basically, $950,000 would be interest. And so it was so crucial what you just said earlier when you talk about savings versus investing. And if you just take your money and you put it in a savings account, you're not going to earn that kind of money over the course of time. All right. So basically what that is the power of compound interest. And I'm going to kind of give you an example and show you what that looks like. And the big thing that most people need to learn and know and understand is this is a long game. It's not like, okay, because you would probably get disappointed if you just looked at this after 5 years, because the majority of the money, if you look, the blue is the money that your principal or the money you put in, and the orange is the interest on my chart. So if you look at the first 5 years, there's you've put $9,900 in this account, and it's worth about 10,000. So you really haven't made a lot of money over the course of this time. And even if you look at it at 10 years, your principal is $19,800. And I had the numbers, but I don't have them right now in front of me. But anyway, but you don't have much more than that. You don't really start to really get over the interest model until about 25 years. Whereas you can see at 25 years, if you're just looking at that graph, the blue is basically 1/3 of the money, and the orange is 2/3 of the money that's in that account. And you're right around $180,000 at that point, at the 25-year point.
Yeah.
All right. And then and of course this is my, and then, but as you see, that orange gets great. The blue doesn't grow that much, but the orange gets greater and greater and greater and greater. And so as you can see, that last one at 48 years, if you start at 17, at 48 years, you're over $1 million. And like I said, the majority of that is just your compound interest.
Yep. And the thing about, when we talk about generational wealth is that, will you spend, by the age of 65, will you spend $1 million? Maybe, depends on how long you live. But the idea is that, at some point when you get to generational wealth, you also get to legacy. And the idea is that, when you think about, well, what did your family, not necessarily your direct parents, but what did your family leave behind for the family? And a lot of times we see this generational wealth or this accumulation get erased when somebody passes away because they didn't do the right things with it in order to secure it for future generations. And there's ways to do that we need to talk about, or we need to implement in our community, so that way that this money that is made isn't eaten up by the tax monster.
Absolutely. We're not going to get into it a lot tonight, but I can just talk about it briefly here. Is one of the ways is basically a Roth IRA. Because a lot of people don't know that basically the great thing about a Roth IRA is that you don't have what we call a RMD, which is required minimum distribution. So for a regular IRA, for 401k, and for all these other accounts, at some point in time, you have to start taking money out because Uncle Sam hasn't taxed that money, so they want to get their money. They want to get their tax. However, with the Roth IRA, you don't ever have to take that money out, number one. And so you can pass it all down. And there are and basically what happens is, and we're going to talk about this later on, but whoever inherits that money, so they get a step up in basics, so they don't have to pay tax on all that money that they inherit. So that's a great way to pass on money to the next generation.
Yeah, live off the dividends.
Absolutely, live off the dividends. So there's really just three components to becoming financially free or financially wealthy. Is discipline, margin, and time. I think the one that is most important is probably discipline, and the second most important is margin, and then time would just come, right? So what does discipline look like for you when it concerns money, Merrick?
Discipline means that even though I want a Tesla, I don't go out and buy a Tesla, right? I got the letter from USA today that says, congratulations, you paid your car off. The 2015 Acura MDX. I'm going to be driving the Acura MDX maybe to 2025.
Right.
Because discipline means that, not having a car payment or paying off two cars doesn't mean to go get one car payment. That's the total of the two cars that you just paid off. Right. The idea is that you take that money that now that you don't have a car payment, you invest it in something, right? The car's still working. It's just a method to get from point A to point B. Nobody's really looking at you in it. And it works. So, the idea is to be disciplined, is to, take care of your needs, and then kind of give yourself time for your wants, because your wants will get you, right? That's what this whole, what America's kind of built off of, is flashy things and getting you to spend the dollar that you're earning every day.
Absolutely. You know, I was thinking about this last night after we, you and I talked last night, and I was thinking about this. And I was thinking right now, I have more than I ever, not even ever had, but ever thought that I would have. So, but there's always still that insatiable desire to want more, right?
Yep.
All of us have it. I don't care even people that are billionaires, they want more stuff. I mean, I don't know how much stuff we have. And I just think about, and if you really think about how you grow up and what you had when you grew up, like, is all this stuff that we have needed, or is it just wants?
It's a lot of it's want. A lot of it is wants, and a lot of it is the television feeding you and Amazon feeding you things that you want that you don't need.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I try to, if I try to humble myself and go back to my roots and think about, I live just well, my upbringing may have not been exactly like others, but I didn't go without. I was never hungry. I was able to get to the things that I wanted to do, and we lived off a lot less than what I make now. What we make jointly, and so I think that we can be a lot more disciplined if we just choose to be. Being disciplined is a choice.
Yeah, and it's
And
about setting goals, right? So I mean,
right,
if you set goals for yourself, in order to reach those goals, you're gonna have to make sacrifices. Sometimes you got to do things a little bit different. So
right, absolutely. And and that's really what it's about. Just discipline and sacrifice. They kind of go hand in hand when it comes to money management or whatever case may be. So let's jump into margin. The next thing is margin. Now, I can tell you, I help a lot of people with their finances. A lot of older people. They come to me and they're like, "Hey, my finances are all jacked up and I need help." And the biggest thing that I notice is that they be wanting to, like, "Hey, I want to start saving for retirement. I'm saving for this, whatever the case may be," but they have no margin. And basically, margin is, okay, if you spend every dollar that's coming in, and most people spend more than every dollar that's going in, that's why they have money on credit cards and stuff like that, then you can never invest because you don't have any margin.
yeah, yeah, that margin is important, and that's where that discipline goes right back into discipline, because sometimes it's okay to cut the cable bill, cut the subscriptions. I was listening to, I think, the Money Guy. They were talking about, if you added up all the monthly subscriptions that you have between Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, all these things that are real appetizing at $6.99, $7.99, a month. At some point, all of the things that you're paying for monthly, these monthly subscriptions, get into the $60, $70, $80 realm. And then you start thinking about, well, it's just $60 a month. Well, $60 a month times 12, times the amount of time that you've held on to the subscription. And the amount starts to bubble up. And then you realize, well, if I was investing that money and getting the interest back and getting money back from it, it'd be a better investment than just having the ability to log on to Netflix or Hulu whenever you wanted to, because that's really what you're paying for, is that convenience of watching a show that somebody told you to go watch, and you're not bettering yourself. You're just kind of wasting your time watching the Squid Games.
Absolutely. Interesting show there, though. I do think that show is interesting. I have watched it a couple of times, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, so margin, discipline, sacrifice, they all kind of go together when it comes to finances or whatever the case may be. And it's just like, if we can get those two, the other one comes easily, because the other one is, all we got to do is just exist, right? Just time. Just take that money. We've been disciplined. We said, okay, we've been disciplined, and I'm not going to spend every dime that comes in. So I created a margin, and now I take that margin and I just put it in the stock market, and over time it just grows. It's like magic. That's and true. It's not hard.
It's not. Absolutely. Well, yeah, just be patient. It's like baking a cake, right? You got all the right ingredients, you mix it all together, you put it in the oven, and you just kind of let it go. You set the temperature and you wait for it to be ready.
That's right. That's right. And when the time is right, you go look at your account. So that's a good question. I just thought about that. So how often do you look at your investment accounts? I'm curious.
So a lot of this has to do with just my mentality as a kid. When I was a child, I had a piggy bank. And every day I would turn that thing over and I would dump all the change out and I would count it, right? Every day. And I think, and part of the reason why now is I probably do it when I wake up in the morning, when I just look just to see what happened, right? But not to make changes to it. I just kind of like to see, if all my ones and zeros are still there. But I probably look at it, at least once a day, just to kind of see what the stock market's doing sometimes. But this weekend, I realized I didn't have a computer with me. I had my phone with me, and because I was off doing other stuff, I wasn't even worried about it or bothered by it. But normally, probably every day is when I take a look at it, but I don't make changes to it every day. I'm just kind of peeking at it just to see what it's doing.
Well, that's interesting because I don't even manage the real money that we have. I don't even manage it. Like I said, we have a financial manager that manages the majority of that money, or whatever the case be. But I have an app on my phone right here that, I can go to all the different places where I can go to, or whatever the case be, and it shows me, what the market has been doing. So I'll probably log in probably once a day, at least once every other day. Yep. And then about every 3 months, I do a net worth calculation to figure out what our net worth is and stuff like that. So it's always interesting to see how much especially when I hadn't done that net worth calculation in about 6 months, and I come and look at it and I'm like, oh wow, we really have some big changes over the last 6 months. So it's always good for me to look at that. It to me is like an encouragement to continue doing what you're doing, right?
Yep.
Because you can see that growth. So
yeah, and it's funny you talk about the net worth calculation because as I was thinking about this conversation, one of the constant themes that I always talk about and kind of think about is knowing your numbers. Right. And knowing your numbers means your credit score, your debt to income ratio, all these things, because when you talk about financial freedom, one of the aspects of that when you talk about credit is knowing that you can apply for a credit card and won't be rejected. Right. There's nothing worse than being in the position of, you want to apply for a credit card, because Costco has a good deal. And if you sign up for the Costco card right now, we'll give you 50% off your purchase. And you're like, I kind of want to do it, but my credit ain't quite right. I don't know where it is, because you don't really know what your credit score is. Right. And I think knowing your numbers, knowing your debt to income ratio, knowing what your credit score is, knowing what the interest rates you're getting on different accounts is important, because that helps you make strong and strong financial decisions, because what this information is. You can't make good decisions if you don't know the right information. So knowing your numbers is important.
I absolutely agree with that. I will just say hear that, so we don't continue and we'll just press on.
Yep.
So if we've just went over the fact that it's easy to become a millionaire. Basically, if you start at 17 and you put $20 away a month or whatever the case would be, you become a millionaire, right? It's easy. You're so why aren't more people millionaires then if it's that easy? And so we have some things here on the list that we're going to talk about. And the first thing is living above your means, incurring debt and credit card debt. So I can say that most credit cards, the average interest rate on a credit card is between 16 and probably at least 14 to 20%. Would you agree with that?
I would.
So we just talked about that the stock market on average averages about 10%. So if you're paying 20% on a credit card, even if you got money invested in the stock market, you're losing money every month because you're not going to find an investment. Most likely, I ain't gonna say not ever, but most likely you're not going to find an investment that's going to make you 20%. Because if you do find one on a regular, whoever you are out there in land, please contact me and let me know so I can invest my money there.
Some people would say GameStop. I think the buck ran out on that one though.
Absolutely. Another one is going to expensive college and having college loans. I'm going to give you an example here in a little bit. We're going to talk about that, but absolutely, that's one of the things, because my son is getting ready to go to college. Maxwell is getting ready to go to college, and we've been looking at different places. We've already applied to quite a few, and my wife and I were talking about it the other day, and we was like, well, we got this GI Bill, and we could probably use it on it. And she was like, no, we're not. He's done well, and so we're going to send him to wherever the college that it will pay for itself. And that really makes so much sense, because when you're talking about calculus is calculus. It don't matter what university you go to; they just teach the same calculus, right?
That's right.
So that's one thing we don't do. Buying cars that we can't afford. I remember when I bought the Porsche, or whatever the case would be, and I would go home and all my cousins would say, man, I want that car. I'm going to get me one of them. And I was like, okay. Buyer beware. Because, because people only think about, it's funny because people don't really think about money. They think about payments, right? When they think about cars, they think about payments. They don't really think about
the payment's only $300 a month for 72 months with the 20% interest, right?
Absolutely.
So you paying about $290 of interest and about $10 in principal. It's gonna take you just a little bit of time to pay that car off.
Yes, they only think in payments. They don't think total cost of the loan. They don't care about that, and they don't think. And a lot of people don't think about like maintenance costs or whatever the case may be. So they don't even think about that. But yes,
so to go back a point when you were talking about going to an expensive college, something that I listened to and read recently that says that a lot of parents take on this debt for their children. But one of the things that was mentioned to me and it kind of stood out to me is that you can finance college, but you can't finance retirement. Right, so a lot of parents will go into debt to pay for their children to go to college, like really expensive schools. But then the parents, will be on the short end because, hopefully your kids will come back and take care of you when you get old, or they'll be mad at you because you didn't save enough for retirement. And then, there's a rule with buying a car sometimes too, is that the car you're buying should be no more than 35% of your annual income. So if your annual income is a certain amount, the number you want to kind of, multiply that or figure out is no more than 35% of your annual income is what you should be spending on the car.
That's pretty good. Actually, I have some, in my budgeting thing, I have some other advice about getting cars, but I think that's a good one as well. Buying too much house. I've heard people tell me, oh, I was able to get this house and it was such a blessing. But then, these military members will then when they get ready to move and they can't sell, and that same house that was a blessing now becomes a curse because they couldn't get rid of it, right? And then, they bought too much house, so now they can't afford to live where they're going to because they're still paying for where they were at.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely. And then go ahead.
I was going to say the rule on that one is about 36%. So, just saying 36% of your annual, you shouldn't spend more than 36% of your annual income on buying a house. Bad idea.
Absolutely.
Because then you're working for your house. And I hope you spend a lot of time on it. Because if you think about, minus the people that are now teleworking, right? But before we were teleworking, if you think about the actual amount of time you spent in your house, like awake and not sleeping, it's not a lot of time. You actually spend more time at work or out than you actually do in the house that you're paying for.
That is true, brother.
But now, our houses are our offices. So,
amen. so maybe that rule is not consistent there.
Exactly. We can just bump that up to 50%.
And the last thing we have on this list is not having a written budget. And like I said, we're going to go through all these things for you guys. All right. So credit card debts, living above your means simply means spending more money than you basically which manifests itself in the credit card debt, payday loans, and bad credit. Absolutely. Did you know that almost half of the Americans carry a credit card debt, on their credit cards every month? Which that's not really a shocking stat to me because we spend more than we make, most of us. So.
Yeah, but if they didn't, the system set up so that we have credit card debt, getting all the stuff that we don't really need, but all the stuff that we see on TV and that we want.
Absolutely. So if you're having a bad week, now, but when we were growing up, if you have a bad week, I don't even know what my mom did when she was having a bad week or a bad month. But now we just say, oh man, I'm just going to go to Tahiti for a week.
I go on Amazon for a couple hours.
Oh, exactly. The average household has $600 to $800 in credit card debt, and like we talked about it before, the average credit card interest rate is about 18%, a little bit over 18%. So like I said, and we already talked about that. You don't make that much in the stock market. So basically, you're doubling your interest on basically than what you can make in the stock market. And the reason why people spend money they don't have, we talked about it. The feel good. You remember that movie? What was that movie? Players Club, where the dude said, "Do something to make me feel better." I guess going out and spending money that you ain't have does something to make you feel. And I tell people, look, that's only a short-term fix.
Yep.
It doesn't do it long term, because eventually when you got to pay that money back, it makes you feel bad, right? So you get that
Yeah.
short term high, and then
The dopamine. Yeah. The dopamine. Yeah. You feel good. And so somebody was saying the chemistry of it all, right? In a new cars smell a certain way. Right. And after a while, they don't smell that way no more. Right. When the pavement starts showing up, you forget how good it smells. But yeah.
Absolutely. So, appearances, as I wear Jordans every day, or I've been wearing Jordans all my life, and so now I can't wear Jordan. I gotta wear Jordans.
Not wear Jordans.
Everybody just assumes that I'm rich and I can wear 4 Jordans, right?
I've never owned a pair of Jordans before.
I've never owned one pair either. I've never owned a pair of Jordans. That's interesting.
My uncle told me once, if you're gonna spend that much money on shoes, make sure they last, right? You get a good pair of shoes, you spend $200 on a pair of shoes, you can go get the soles put back on them, right? nice, good Italian leather. They'll last you a lifetime if you treat them right. But you got Jordans and you're walking funny because you can't crease them.
Hey, you sound like Miles, because I remember when Miles got his first pair, or whatever the case, but he would walk real funny because he didn't want to put creases in his shoes. I was like, what are you walking like that for? Absolutely. Absolutely, for status, we get with these groups or whatever the case it be, and so one person is somewhere, and so we feel like that everybody has to do it. Desire to be like whoever the Joneses are. I don't know who those people are. And then finally, social pressure. So just social pressure. Absolutely, there's a lot of social pressure to do. I think Facebook and all the social networks put social pressure on the people, whether it's intentionally or inadvertently. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I definitely agree. I mean, the idea, like I said, is just to get you to spend the money that you're working hard for, rather than get the money that you worked hard for to work for you.
Absolutely. So let's just talk a little bit about credit so people can know. So what is credit? Credit is basically an honor system. Basically, they're going to give you something, and then you promise to pay them back at some point in time, whether it's a car, a house, whatever. Credit scores range from 300 to 850. A good score is around 720. Credit card can be used great. I used to be a Dave Ramsey dude. And we don't have credit cards, but I have come around to that. I no longer think that way. I feel like that you can use a credit card and you can use it and not, have credit card debt every month. But there are some good things that come off credit card. I mean, you talk about it. I mean, because Dave Ramsey makes fun of it. He said, you're never going to get rich off getting points. You're right. You're not going to get rich. But there's a whole lot of points you can get off using credit cards to buy things that you were already going to pay for anyway.
Exactly. So listen, so I'll give you the Amazon example. And I think I was at Rite Aid the other day. So I am an American Express card holder, right? I use it and for just about, everyday daily purchases, right? I'm going to buy gas. I'm going to get the gas points, airline miles, whatever. So, I am about receiving rewards for spending my money, just because the bank that I'm with doesn't allow me to get points, cash back, or something like that. Right. So it's funny. I was talking to Marley the other day, and we were at the store, and she was like, Dad, they have a rewards program. If you sign up for a card, I can get points toward whatever store we were shopping in. And I was like, it's funny that my 13-year-old daughter is listening to to my plan and how I spend money and how I put it on credit cards. But anyway, back to Rite Aid. So I go to Rite Aid and I swipe the credit card, and it's like, hey, you have 41,000 points. Would you like to apply your points to this purchase? And I was like, sure, right? Does that mean it's free? Well, it is today because the points accumulated. And the same thing with hotels. You want to go stay a weekend somewhere, you got hotel points, just cash them in and go. So I definitely think there's some benefits to it, but you definitely have to have a lot of discipline in order to, if you charge $400 for car service, that's annual or whatever, break jobs, whatever, and you put it on the credit card, you have to be able to pay that $400 off on that card so you don't end up paying interest on it, because that's what the credit card companies want you to do, is they want you to pay the interest. Of course, they'll let you use it for whatever limit they have, but they want to ultimately make money off the interest you would owe them if you let that cycle go and you got to pay that 18%.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big thing. And they know that, they know that the majority of credit card users don't pay their credit cards off for monthly. And that's why they give away these points, because they're trying to encourage you to use your credit cards. Use them. So, but listen, for those people out there, you have to pay these things off monthly. That's why when I'm talking to people, I'm giving advice about category. Yeah, I say use it for things that you were going to pay for anyway. Like my money that I pay in the church for tithes, I use I'll pay it. I'll put it on my credit card and I'll pay it off in church. So I'll give my money to church and I'll pay it off at the same time. Gas, things that you were going to pay for anyway. Just use it for those things or whatever the case may be. If you find yourself, not having the discipline to basically pay them off, only use them for those types of things.
Yeah, that's what I do with my Costco card. I was needing gas the other day. I saw a Costco, whipped out the Costco card, paid for the gas, and then in the very next breath, paid the Costco card off with the bank account.
Absolutely. That's some stuff about how credit works. It's pretty standard. I don't think that nobody knows about that. But basically, you go out there, you say, company basically going to take a chance on you. They give you a credit card. They say, we're agreeing to pay you, paying you, you can buy this thing, whatever it is, and you can get, and we'll let you pay us back in payments. And you just give us a little fee, which is called the interest, right? And then every month you pay that money or whatever the case would be. And then over time, they report it to one or all three of the credit agencies. Do you know all three credit agencies, Merrick?
I do. Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion.
That's what. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I disputed something on my credit report, and like within hours, not hours, but within a day or so, my credit score changed. And then I did that exact same dispute with the other agencies, and it changed in all three of them.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Yep.
So go ahead.
And I was gonna say, and I advise people, like when you know your number, you also monitor your credit, right? Because if you're like, I'm afraid to go apply for a credit card because there's something wrong with my credit score and it's low. Well, maybe there's something on your credit report that needs to be disputed that you haven't looked at. Your name change and address change. There are little things in your credit report that'll affect your score. And just by going and disputing those things or clarifying them on your credit report could fix or change your credit score. But the ultimate thing is information and knowing what your score is.
Right. I teach people, on the annualcreditreport.com, I think it's .com. There you can get all three credit reports, one time a year for free. So what I do is basically every quarter I get one of the every 4 months or so, I get one of the reports. So I get the Experian, then I'll get the TransUnion, then I get the other one, Equifax. And so I can always continue. I'm always continually monitoring my credit, and I'm doing it for free because those things are free. So
yeah, and it doesn't cost you anything to log on to any three of those credit bureaus and set up a profile and look at your credit report. Because I think by law, they're supposed to be able to give you those credit reports for free at least one time a year, so you'll know what your credit is. So you can't fix it if you don't know what's wrong with it. So I highly encourage you to go Equifax, TransUnion, and
Equifax, TransUnion, and it's the other E. We were just talking about it.
Yeah, whatever the other one is, just go look at the credit report.
It's going to hit me in a second, but it's okay. All right, so. Okay, let's talk about credit scores now. Credit scores is basically how to determine your credit score. You got the big two, and then you have all the others. So the biggest one is payment history, right? So you gotta basically pay your stuff on time. If you don't pay your stuff on time, it's going to hurt that credit history, that payment history. And so that is the biggest criteria, as you can see, 35%.
Yep.
The next one you have is credit utilization. What do you know about credit utilization, Merrick?
So if you have a credit card with a $20,000 limit, and you have $18,000 used on it, your credit utilization is out the roof, right? You're higher than 50%. You're probably at 90 something. And so if you do that on all your credit cards, maybe you don't max them all the way out. You keep a little bit of a balance on it. It doesn't matter. Your credit utilization is going to be sky high because you used all your credit up and you don't have any wiggle room, right? So you want to keep that utilization low, which we kind of go back to paying off those credit cards because that utilization rate is going to affect your credit score.
Absolutely. So some of the things I tell people, and I know, this is one thing that, Dave Ramsey says you don't need credit cards or whatever the case, because you don't need credit in a sense. But, I totally disagree with that as well. But what happens is if you get rid of your credit cards and maybe you just have one and you have a lower limit on that and you use that up or whatever the case it be now, because your credit utilization encompasses all of your credit or any type of card or any type of, like, if you got a loan on a home that's that has a credit line, a line of credit or something like that. It encompasses those. So basically, it takes all those things. So say if you got 5 credit cards and they're $30,000 limit on each, then you got $150,000 worth of credit available to you. And so that's how it calculates. And so if you have $10,000 on either one or all of them, it doesn't matter. They just look at it as, okay, you got $150,000 available and you're using $10,000 of that. So you're using a very small percentage of your credit. And so your credit utilization is low. The numbers, what they want you to be, like I said, it says for good credit, your credit utilization, they want you to be below 30. For excellent credit, you need to be below 10%. So if you're below 10, then you can get whatever you want. All right. The next thing is credit history. 15% is your credit history link. So basically, when some loans close out. So if you buy a house and you pay for it, when the house is paid for, that account closes. Right. So you could have had your house for 30 years, but then when you pay it off or whatever the case, or however long you had it, when you pay it off, that account closes. So you no longer have that credit length. But so that's why I tell people, if you get credit cards, just keep them. Even if you don't put nothing on them, just keep them, because it continues to grow that credit length. All right. Credit mix. That's talk about revolving credit versus installment credit. And we've kind of talked about both of them all the time. A credit card is considered revolving credit. And then a house payment or a car payment is considered an installment. All right. And then the last thing, is new credit. Basically, are you going out there trying to continue to get new credit or whatever the case? There are some things that don't hurt you as much. Like, for instance, if you're going out there and buying a house and you're trying to figure out which lender is going to give you the best rate, it doesn't really hurt you because it's the same type of, you're out there trying to get the same type of credit. So you can go do that. And actually, you can see it's only 10% of the credit rating anyway. So it's not that big of a deal. Any other things to add there, Mary?
No, I was just thinking about when you're talking about getting your credit checked to buy a house. Like, well, what if I want to buy a car before I buy a house? How would that affect my credit?
That would not be very smart, is what it would not be. Matter of fact, I've had, I'm a real estate agent as well. And so I've had buyers to do that. And they'll go out, or put it this way, they'll have gotten their pre-approval letter. And then before they actually get the house, they go buy a car.
To go in the garage.
Right, to go in the car, but they haven't gotten the house yet.
Yeah.
And so then when they then they start going through the process of getting the house, and they're like, oh, you can't get this house because you bought that car.
Mm-hmm. Or your interest rate's really a lot higher than you thought it was going to be, which then affects your payments, right? Your monthly payments. So,
absolutely. So here's how credit affects you. Good credit allows you to buy things you couldn't otherwise afford, like a house or a car, because most of us don't have $300,000 to go buy a house in our accounts, or whatever the case may be, or maybe $50,000 to go buy a car, which one it is. You typically get lower interest rates and lower insurance rates. People don't even take that into consideration, but insurance, you get lower insurance rates when you have good credit. Bad credit, you got to pay higher interest rates. It stops you from buying some things at all. Like if you got bad credit, because trust me, I have many clients, and that's why people don't understand. They be like, why do I have to get a pre-approval letter to go see a house? And they just don't know how many people that I've gone to show houses, and then they're like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go get my pre. I tell them, to show you the next house or to make an offer, because they'll be like, I want to make an offer on this house. And then I say, okay, well, you got to go get your pre-approval letter, and they can't get pre-approved. Matter of fact, it just happened this week. With one lady or whatever the case would be, and I didn't show her like 5 or 6 houses. Like, how much time did I waste?
Yeah, my cousin talks about that all the time. He's a realtor in Virginia, and that's the first thing he's doing is asking them for the pre-approval letter so they can, they don't waste your time. Really, so, we're gonna start that because we go back to a couple slides earlier. The old saying that time is money, right? Literally, it is.
Absolutely. Yeah, but people get mad when I tell them that. That's like, people are like, well, why do I need a pre-approval letter? Okay.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it happens every week. I know it happens because I was going to homecoming, and this lady sent me. It's like, I want to go see all 6 of these houses. Now I had talked to her a week prior and told her, okay, you need to get a pre-approval letter. She showed up and like, yeah, I want to go see these houses. I said, where's your pre-approval letter? She said, I don't have it, but I still want to see these houses. I was like, no, you don't want to see these houses with me. Another thing that people don't really understand when you get bad credit is you got to pay deposits on things that you normally wouldn't have to. Like if you go get your lights turned on, you go get your cell phone or whatever the case may be. Normally they check your credit. You got good credit, no deposit required. But if you got bad credit, you got to pay deposits on those things.
And it has everything to do with risk, because somebody's taking the risk on you that you're going to pay this debt back, right? People with good credit, you know, they have a history of paying their debts, and people with bad credit have a history of not paying them. So I'm going to take the more risky option. I'll loan you the money, of course, but I'm going to loan it to you at a higher interest rate, and I'm going to, you know, jack up everything else on it, because there's a slight chance based on your history and your track record that I might not get my money back.
That's it, brother. That's really what it's about. That's the whole credit game is about risk. Absolutely. Compound interest, we kind of talked about it all the way, but the credit cards can work against you when we talk about compound interest. And I gave this example to the young people because I wanted them to know. But basically what I'm saying is, and we've talked about it, so I'm not going to belabor this slide because I know we're getting long in the tooth here, but the bottom line is how credit cards work is they don't want you to pay your balance off, people. They want you to keep a balance on there, because the longer you have a balance on there, the more interest they get. So they don't want you. So that's why. So typically on most credit card companies that operate, you only have to pay 2% of the balance every month to basically keep your credit going. And there's a lot of people out there that only pay the 2%. And they end up paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest every month. So don't do that, people.
Yeah, and a good example is that when you look at a car payment, right? You know, when the car company says, "Hey, you want to finance this thing for 72 months at, you know, whatever percent interest rate," and you look at the total price of the car, and we'll finance you, we'll take care of you. And then at the end of the day, you look at, you know, you might have spent $40,000 for a vehicle, but in the end, you spent like $56,000, and $16,000 of it was in interest.
Absolutely.
And so that's why, you know, a car company would be willing to finance you. Of course, we'll finance you, right? You want 84 months? We could drag this thing out.
Exactly. People think that they drug it out. 84 months. And the thing about that is, you know, I think about that, you talked about the Money Guy show, and they talk about a lot of good things that I've learned just by watching that show, whatever the case. But one of the good things I've learned about that is, like, you know, and typically, you know, our market is kind of crazy right now because used cars are appreciating, but normally that doesn't happen. But anyway, if you take out a loan for 84 months and you don't put any money down on the car, you're probably going to be upside down on that car for quite some time. And so if you were to wreck it and it gets total loss, you're going to probably owe money to whomever, whatever the case would be. Yeah. So
that's when insurance companies will let you pay the higher premium and interest rates or insurance rates to have the insurance to cover the vehicle if it's a total loss, right? And so then, you know, those unexpected consequences when you buy that new vehicle, or your insurance goes up too.
Right. Absolutely. College debt. This is a big one. You know, a lot of people have 70% of the students that graduate from college these days have debt. And college, the price of college has gone up astronomically from when you and I were in college. I mean, I even look at my little school, and I look at what the price of tuition is now for when I go in, and it's probably 2 or 3 times what it was when I was there. Whatever the case may be. What about LSU?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a lot when I was there, but then when you look at what people are spending now, you realize it's not that much.
Right.
You know, when you think about how much money you spent, 20-something years ago to go to college, but it's crazy now. And, you know, we talked to Marley a lot about college and about what she wants to do. And I'm like, well, you know, you have what we didn't have, and that's a GI Bill. So, you know, you're going to be going to school for free. And, you know, but we created a 529 account, and, you know, we did all those things to help pay for her education. But, you know, if you can go free, then free's best, because it's not, you know, college is an investment, but also it's a business. And, you know, colleges are in the business of making money and educating people. But it's, it's not only going to get more expensive over time.
Yeah, I teach young people about this. I say, you know, everything in your life, when it comes to money, you need to get a return on your investment in money, or whatever the case may be. And so if you're spending $300,000 to go to college, and you graduate out getting a $60,000 job, that return on investment is not very good.
Yeah, it's gonna take you at least 5 years, right? So 5 years to make the $300,000 back.
Right.
But then you still got all those bills that you had to pay and your student loans and everything else. So
right.
Yeah, you got to make smart decisions about, what you want to do in college, because they're not, no college is going to tell you that that's a bad idea to have this major and they don't pay what, etc.
Right.
They're going to want you to come and show you the nice fancy brochure and show you all the people smiling and how happy they are. But they don't show the pictures of them after they get their student loan letters in the mail that says how much they owe.
Here's a crazy stat for you, and I was listening to it the other day. Is like less than half of the people who actually go to college and get a degree are working in the field that they actually got the degree in.
Yeah,
which is crazy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But here's some more stats. The average person that graduates from college has about $30,000 in debt. It takes about 18 and a half years to pay off that debt. And there are 14.2 million Americans between 35 and 49 that have student loans. But here's the crazy one. There's 2.3 million Americans that are 62 and older that still have college loans. You 62 and you still ain't paid for college. It is amazing, but it's true, brother.
Yeah, I mean, you'll be using the money in your IRA to pay off your college loans.
College loans, absolutely. The big bullet that I have down there, but student debt robs you of your future because you spend so much time paying for your past. All right. So let me give you some crazy examples of what a couple of my students. So of course Merrick, but the world might not know. I taught at Howard for a couple of years, whatever the case to be, and so I had a couple of students that did some crazy stuff. So I had one. She had a choice. Basically, they were going to. Oh yeah. So she had the choice to go to University of Texas for free, but she wanted to go to George Washington in Washington D.C. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so she ended up instead of going to school for free, she ended up carrying $100,000 in debt to go to George Washington, which was crazy. And now she's making $52,000 a year, or whatever the case would be. And so I was like, this is crazy. I got another student that went to Howard, and basically at the end of the semester, she just decided that she was going to withdraw from the university. Not like with so if people who've gone to college know that you can withdraw from your classes at any given time, or whatever the case would be, and you can get a percentage of your money up to a certain date, and then that's the withdrawal period is over. So
after the day afterwards,
right. So after the withdrawal period is over, it doesn't matter. You can withdraw, but you're not gonna get any money back, right? So she waited till the last day, basically they're taking exams, and she decided to withdraw from the university. And I was like, you just gave away $20,000, but young people make not very smart decisions with money. That's because that's why this whole college thing is so important, because you have people who have no knowledge of money making huge financial decisions, right?
Yeah, I'm
pretty sure if I call her 10 years from now and say, hey, do you think throwing away that $20,000 was a smart decision? She'll probably say no, right? Mm-hmm. But at the time, she's like, this is no big deal.
And I think that's why it's so important that we teach our children at a young age the benefits of money, right? And I think about just kind of growing up, this is one of the taboo things to talk about, right? So your parents are doing their checkbook and they're balancing their checkbook. If you look over their shoulder to see what they got going on, because maybe they're embarrassed about how much money they have, they're not going to talk about it. Like, get away, what are you doing, right? But instead of sitting them down and saying, hey, this is how you balance a checkbook, right? And why it's important that you balance a checkbook, we kind of got the opposite. So which is why now Marley turned 13, I gave her access to her bank account. So we can talk about it and we can, make good decisions about, you want to go shopping at the mall or do whatever, right? Realize that you're going to spend all your money, you won't have anything left. Or somebody gives you money. The rule is 15% goes in your savings account. Like, you're always going to save something if somebody gives you something or you earn something. So that way you learn the value of saving. You learn the value of earning, your own money. But I think that's something we definitely have to do, is just have conversations about it and not be embarrassed and not be ashamed, and just, talk about it.
Right. I mean, the classes that I've been teaching at the high school, the more I teach, the more parents come out, which is I'm so excited about, because like the kids are going home and talking to the parents, and the parents are saying, oh, I need to go get some of this. And so they're starting to come out. So, I mean, so it's not, it's not an indictment or embarrassment not to know. It's embarrassing to have the information available to you and just to say, I'm not going to go get it. I'm just going to remain, that in the know, in the not knowing, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right. So, I talked about that young lady that that grew that $100,000 in college debt, and I say, okay, if she took out a college loan for $100,000, she's going to repay over 20 years. She's going to repay $145,000. But if she would have put that money in the stock market and earned that 9% interest that we talked about, she would have had $458,000 by the time that she ended up paying off this loan. So
yeah,
that's just what it is, people. That's just what it is.
Time value money. And if you had a chart of the stock market and you could show, over a 5-year period, a 10-year period, the one trend that thing always has is that it's always moving up. Like if you look at what happened in April 2020, it moved it moved down. It went negative, right?
Right.
If you look at where it was April 20 to now, it went back up again.
Ooh, matter of fact, yeah. If you look at it, if you look at it in the small time chunks, you'll see a lot of downs. Yeah. But if you look at it over long periods of time, it's a steady curve going up.
Yep.
Absolutely. Cars and houses, or whatever the case may be. So I think I talked about this, about how cars and homes being a blessing, but they can be a curse when they break down, or when you can't, all this kind of stuff. But you got to remember, a car is just a utility, people, and that's the big thing that people need to understand. We can have the nicest car or the cheapest car, but both of my boys, I bought their cars on the auction site. I think I paid $4,000 for one. I made $2,800 for the other. They're just a utility, especially for young people, because they going Maxwell back out of the garage. My truck was parked beside his, and he screwed my truck all the way. You can expect young people to do stuff like that. So why would you spend a lot of money on a car for a young person?
I tell. We were talking to Marley. She's 13 now. And I said, your first car is going to be a 2015 Acura MDX.
Absolutely. They lose value, baby.
They do. They lose value as soon as you drive them off the lot.
As soon as you drive them off the lot. So here's some things I tell people about when you're buying cars. And actually, this is not original. I got this from the Money Guys, because I love those guys. It says, try to put 20% down, finance your car for no longer than 3 years, and your payment should be no more than 8% of your gross income. And your car payment, here's a big thing right here, no more than 8%, but your car payment shouldn't be more than you invest every month. If you really want to be financially, if you want to be, grow wealth and be generational wealth, you got to put money away, right? So if you're paying more in car payment than you're putting away every month, then you're not going to get that. You're going to be imbalanced, all right?
Yeah, and the car becomes a depreciating asset over time.
Absolutely. Cars depreciate, absolutely. It don't matter what. Well, if you keep it long enough, maybe it will appreciate, but you're probably gonna be dead or very old. But but that money that you're putting away in the stock market is going to grow every month, and you're gonna be able to use that to your benefit. So.
Yes.
Homes or rental houses. The big thing about this slide is that if you decide, please remember, you don't own the property. I see a lot of people that, treat rental properties like they're their own, and they put money into themselves. And I was like, this house, I mean, I got a lot of them. So yeah. I'd be like, well, I appreciate you taking great care of my property, but if you don't pay next month, I'm gonna put you out.
But you know what? Because I can appreciate a tenant that takes care of a property, right? And occasionally for Christmas, you send them $100 gift card, or you send them some gift cards or something. Buy some flowers, a gift card to Lowe's, go buy some stuff to make the house look nice, right?
Absolutely. I agree with that. I agree with that premise, because I have done that. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but here's the crazy thing about that. Even that when you said that, so I have several tenants that I have tried to sell their house to. And most of them, I have I have tenants that have stayed in the house since I have owned the house. So we're talking 20 years plus. And they still stay there renting. And I'm like, don't you want to buy this house? You've paid for it already, right? But the biggest thing is I want people to know about this is, like, the majority of people's wealth, for the most regular people, the majority of your wealth is in your home. Mm-hmm. So if you don't buy a home, then you're missing out on the greatest generational generator of wealth that most Americans have.
Yep. And that definitely is a generational wealth builder, because that home, if kept in the family, could be passed down. Right. The
Right.
idea of having a paid off property in your portfolio in your house as an asset to pass down to a loved one, it allows you to leverage it. Right. So, somebody needs to go to college. You can leverage a home asset, or you can leverage, whatever, but you have leverage when you have that house. So.
And then the other thing about houses is that, while the market may go down at some point in time, we have had, recessions where markets go down, but housing only goes up. It only gets to be worth more over time, because land is a resource that we only have a certain amount of, right? And so once it's all gone, it's all gone. So
yeah, I just peeped into the comment section, and I know there's some people in the chat. I know we're gonna get to it. There's somebody asking about business credit and about establishing business credit. I don't think we're going to talk about that in this seminar, this one particular today, but we're going to get into it in either seminar 2 or 3, because I know both of us own businesses,
right?
And we talk about having business credit as a whole nother conversation that we could have, but probably not tonight, because we're already like at the hour mark.
Right, we're at the hour mark, so I don't want to belabor this more. But I will say this: I don't care what business that you're opening, nobody's going to give your business credit without you being a guarantor on that loan, or whatever the case may be.
That's right. Because business credit will be backed by you.
But we'll be backed by you, absolutely. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what type of loan, what business you have. You can get your EIN number, and you can do all those things. At the end of the day, if your business has no credit, they're going to say, okay, Mr. Whoever, Mr. Joyner, I need you to sign saying that you're going to back this loan.
Because you are the owner of this business, and your assets are going to be used as collateral in the event that your business is not able to pay this amount back.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think we're going to get into budget, and we're going to save that topic for next week or whatever the case may be. I do want to give this story right quick, and I want to talk about sacrifice, and I want to show people what it looks like. So my wife and I had just moved from San Antonio to Dayton, Ohio. The house in San Antonio didn't sell, right? And so I have a wife that's not working. I have a child that's in private school, and I'm having to pay I'm having to pay my mortgage there in San Antonio, and I'm having to pay, of course, my rent there when we were in Dayton. And so when Christmas time came that year, I told my wife, I said, look, we're not buying any Christmas gifts. And she looked at me crazy. She was like, what? She was like, nobody? I said, nobody. And we did not buy one Christmas gift that year, not for our children, not for our parents, not for anybody, because what we didn't want to do, and what I told her we're not going to do, I said, I'm not going to go in debt to buy Christmas gifts. It's just not worth it, right? And so I was telling my boys that story about a month ago when I built this first set of slides, and they had no idea. Because here's the thing about it. So we went to my in-laws for Christmas that year. My in-laws and all my cousins, all their, aunts and uncles and stuff that bought them so much stuff, they had no idea that we didn't buy them anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I just use that as one of the examples of, that's what sacrifice looks like.
But that goes back to that other slide where you talk about discipline, right? So you had the discipline to say that, you either have a budget for Christmas, and every year I always talk about this. What's the Christmas budget? Because I'm into buying gift cards and, doing different things, but I've completely changed my whole strategy. My new gift giving is I'm only gifting stock to people, because I realize, especially like my younger, like my nieces and nephews, because I realize in 18 years, I might forget that they're graduating from high school or whatever. And then, to give them $100 a year, 18 years from now, is not the same as investing $100 in a stock that pays dividends 4 times a year over 18 years, right? When you go back to that slide that you talked about compounding interest, that gift that I give you now as a 1-year-old, when you turn 18, will be worth so much more, 18 years from now than it will be if I decided to hold off and get you nothing, or buy you a toy and wait till you turn 18 to give it to you, or wait till you turn 18 to graduate from high school. So, and that's the mentality, that's how we got to change how we do things. And like you said, no Christmas gifts, because you didn't want to put yourself in a financial bind to play the game that the television said you need to play to make everybody happy and smile on Christmas, which you didn't even really need to do, because, 14 years from now, they don't even remember it.
Absolutely. They don't remember that. Absolutely. So, it's about, it's about letting, and we're going to get into budgeting next week and next time, whatever the case may be. And I think this is going to be great for everybody. But you talked about Christmas budgets. And so when I make a Christmas budget, I write a name and I put a number beside that name, and I have an overall budget. And when I get to the end, if we're in the negative, then somebody has to take some money off, right? I'm just sorry, because
we redivide up the whole sheet.
Exactly, but I'm not going to overspend over that number because it is what it is, right? Because at the end of the day, do you remember what your aunt got you for last year for Christmas? No, I don't, and I don't even care. It's not even important. So
yeah, there's a question in the chat. It says Shanika Bell asks, "Can you explain more of margin or say it differently?"
Margin. So okay, here's margin. Here's what margin is. So you make X amount of dollars. So let's just make a number up. So say you make $3,000 a month. We're gonna say you can give you an example. So you make $3,000 a month. If your car payment, I'm just going to say, if your house payment is $1,000, let's say $1,500. So your house payment is $1,500 and your car payment is $500, and the rest of the bills that you have are $1,000. That equals $3,000, right? So you have no margin to invest. And so what you have to do is you have to create margin, and you start that by being intentional about your spending. And that means that, okay, I'm not only can spend this much on my house, I can only spend this much on my car, because I always want to have margin so I can invest. But if there is no margin because you're spending every dime, then you can't invest. That's what it is, Ms. Bell.
And when you talk about the budget, this is why the budget is so important, because the budget will help you find that margin, right?
Absolutely.
We sat down with our financial planner, and that's the when we go through the car notes, the insurance, all this different stuff, and you start to readjust the budget or readjust how you pay things, paying down credit cards, somebody will work with you and help you find margin. And then the key is not to spend it when you find it, right? It's to actually apply it to a savings or apply it to an investment. But you have to be able to figure out what you're making, what you're spending, and that margin is kind of what's left over, right? Because that's money that you're probably just going to use as discretionary funds to blow on Amazon or things that you want to do, but it's not money that you actually need to live and to survive every day. That's a great question. Thank you.
And if and a good margin is basically about 20%. So if you can say 20%, if I'm making $3,000 a month, and I say, so I'm going to save $600 of that. So basically, I'm going to live off of only $2,400. That's a good way to think about margin, whatever it gets to be. So anyway, it's been a pleasure talking with you tonight, Merrick. I hope that whoever was paying attention out there in the land or whatever case, we got some out of the things that we talked about. Like I said, we're going to get into budgeting and investing in the future. So please come back and join us. Also, what we have coming up starting in January, for those people who follow the facts page, we're going to have our what is that thing called? I can't even remember. We're going to have our
challenge.
Yeah, we're going to have our 75-mile challenge coming up in January. It's going to go from the 1st to the 31st of January. So for those people who are looking to basically start off the year right and to burn a couple extra calories, please join us in our 75-mile challenge. You'll be seeing stuff on our webpage, on Facebook, and all over about how to sign up and how to be involved in that.
So do we have a date for the next one of these? Did we decide that yet, or do you want everybody to stay tuned? That like I listen to a lot of podcasts, so you guys go to the facts page, like the group chat. Registration opens this Friday for the 75K challenge. Tell a friend about facts, so families are coming together stronger. This is a wonderful idea to start this nonprofit to get families talking about finances, about health, about mental health, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. I know Maya and I enjoy all of our time with you guys, and I'm just looking forward to what we're able to bring and having more people join us. So for everybody who joined tonight, thank you for dropping in. Like the facts page, share it with a friend, invite your friends and family to the next conversation, because like I said, this is a conversation about finances and how to save and how to build generational wealth. And we plan to continue to give you guys more about the steps and the plan to build generational wealth and how you can make these things work in your own family's lives.
Absolutely. And these videos are going to be loaded on the 3factsinc.org. So you can go to our website. Again, that's 3factsinc.org, the number 3. And you can go down to basically a place on our website, and it'll basically, these videos and other videos that we've done in the past will be there. So, all right. It's been a pleasure talking to you this night, Merrick, and we will chat with you at another time, buddy.
All right. Hey, see you guys later, and have a great night.
All right. Take care.